Oscar Piastri grabs pole position with a very impressive lap at the end of the Spanish Grand Prix. McLaren lock out the front row for this race. I'm Tim Hauraney, and this is Nailing the Apex. It's not the Flexi-wing clampdown. It's McLaren's superior tire degradation advantage that they had in this one. And so what I mean by that is how the tire degrades over a lap. Obviously, McLaren has really nailed on something with that this season in particular, and a lot of the other teams scrambling to try and figure it out and catch up. It's super hot at the Spanish Grand Prix, and the tires just aren't lasting for anyone other than McLaren. Granted, McLaren's tires on Oscar Piastri's car, the one that got pole position, were starting to give way towards the end of his push lap. However, still not as severe as what some of the other teams were dealing with. And we'll get into some of that here on this post-qualifying podcast. Let's start with Oscar because this is a big turnaround for Piastri compared to where he was at this track last year. Last year he qualified P9. Wasn't a great weekend for him as his teammate Lando Norris grabbed pole position for last year's race here at the Spanish Grand Prix. And just another one of those tracks that he really worked on hard over the wintertime. That's something we have spoken about on this show before. And I actually have had spoken to Oscar about this as well and how much work he had put in during the winter months with the team, at the factory, in the sim, just trying to get the grips with tire management and then also the tire in particular throughout the qualifying lap itself, getting the right balance in the car, et cetera, et cetera. So China was one of those tracks that stood out to me as the big improvements from those tracks that I point out here. And Japan also would have been another one. This was another one as well, where you could really notice the big step that Piastri has taken for his push lap. His final push lap was super impressive. Sector 1 and 2 were very strong. Then in Sector 3, he looked like he lost a bit of time. And I think, like I was saying, I just used up too much of the tire in the first portions of the track to maybe improve in Sector 3. So using up a lot of what you have in the first two sectors and then kind of staying equal in the delta in the final sector. Piastri did feel confident, though, that he could get pole here. Coming into the weekend, the team and him had done a lot of work on not only the prep, but making sure that the car rolled out of the garage with a decent setup on it that he had to kind of play with and tweak with as the weekend built up into qualifying. But again, you would never know because they were so fast in all three free practice sessions. Piastri was actually asked about the Flexi-wing clampdown. So Adam and I had done a show on Thursday about the Flexi-wing clampdown, and I kind of explained how the FIA were going to police a lot of that new directive that they had come out for Spain and for the rest of the races moving forward. Piastri felt that they've had a lot of challenges in dealing with this car, and he had said that no, there wasn't any challenges that came from the Flexi-wing clampdown for this weekend. Anyways, he said he's had the same problems as usual with dialing the car in that he's been suffering with all season, but the Flexi-wing clampdown just did not play a factor for him at all. Looking at the race for tomorrow, I think he feels like the race could be a bit more difficult to win. He feels there's going to be a lot of tire management in this particular race, and I do agree with him. It definitely will be a tire management race, but I'll be interested to see is who's able to manage the tire better, right? We saw Max actually do a fairly decent job of it in Imola. I'll be curious to see if Max can do that again, pull that off. Obviously, Red Bull had brought some pretty big upgrades to the car for Imola. Here, not so much. But that being said, long race tomorrow, probably going to be two-stopper. It'll be interesting to see how well those who saved tires over the weekend and in qualifying compared to those who didn't. But yeah, Oscar was also asked about the what did he call it? The cheeky toe that Lando got off him in quali, and Piastri said that it was just a coincidence that it had happened, that Lando was actually behind him getting a toe, and Norris, who was sitting beside him in the press conference room, agreed with him. He felt that it was just coincidence because of where they stacked out in the pit lane. Let's talk about Lando a little bit. Made a lot of mistakes in turn 1. Exit of turn 4 wasn't the cleanest lap, but he did still improve on his provisional pole lap, which he had set in Q3. Obviously, Norris was the one that opened up that provisional pole score at the beginning of Q3, and then Oscar coming through and taking it away on the very last attempt for Piastri. But Norris feels pretty confident for the race on Sunday. He's been pretty happy with the car, and he was asked about if he feels the progress that he had made in Monaco. And if you go back and listen to our Monaco post-quali podcast, I had said that for Lando, he'd been working on his preparation and lead into the weekend, getting himself set for a good qualifying, because he's losing a lot of these races because of where he had been qualifying following the Australian Grand Prix. But he feels that he still has that progress there. He felt good this weekend. He felt good today. He felt confident. It was just mistakes that put him behind, and he understands that he did try to do a little bit too much. So overdriving the car, just a bit, but was still saying it was a positive weekend for himself up to this point. I think, yeah, as a driver, when you are feeling confident and you're trusting the car, and that pole position is within grasps, sometimes it is easy to overdo a lap, and that's definitely what happened here with Lando. I mean, his race pace has been really strong this season, so it's definitely going to be a big battle between Oscar and Lando for the victory tomorrow, because Lando's long runs were really good in free practice too. So were Max's. He was very close to Lando's long run pace, but however, it's definitely going to be a battle between himself and Oscar, I think, for race victory on Sunday. So it should be a good one up front, that's for sure. Max Verstappen, P3. Max set the exact same time as George Russell did in Q3, but he had set the time just before George had done it. So Max is the one who is taking P3. First run in Q3 was a bit difficult because they tried a new outlap approach, he said. And a big part of that is trying to get the tire not fired up, but essentially trying to make sure the tire wasn't degrading even on the outlap. So there would still be lots of life left in the tire when he got towards the end of his push lap. If that makes any sense. Essentially, you're trying to save as much of the tire as you can, because for this weekend, with the temperatures, how hot it is there, the nature of the track surface itself leads itself to degrading the tire pretty quickly. And Pirelli has brought their strongest sort of ranging compounds, so the ones that should last as long as they can. His turn 1 was a struggle for him, he said. and he tried different approaches, but just couldn't find the grip that he needed for turn one. He was happy with the balance of the car, though. He just didn't have enough grip in the car overall. He said he had a lot of fun out there, so it sounds like he's got the car into a nice spot where he can really dance with it and feel confident that it's not going to get away from him, and then also manage the tire at the same time. He thinks tomorrow could be tough, though. But he said he'd put up a fight, and he thinks it's time for him. What did he say? He said, I think it's time for me to shine into turn one for tomorrow. That's what he said. 3 wide is what he said, and they started laughing. He was joking about that, but I would like to see that. So there's that. Russell, P4. Really good lap from George, there at the end. Matching Verstappen, obviously on lap time. Like I said, Max did it first, so he gets P3, George gets P4, but Russell really showing a lot of pace here in the Mercedes in difficult conditions. Didn't really think Mercedes was going to have great pace here this weekend because of what happened in Monaco coming off of that, and could they rebound? But most certainly rebounded. Like, this was very strong pace from George. Interested to see how his race goes tomorrow, because I think Mercedes could be battling Max for that final podium position. He's been in the top 5 every qualifying except for Monaco this season, but for Spain, the team and himself tried something really different for this weekend with the car setup. So George called them drastic changes, but essentially setting the car up more for the race than qualifying. So prioritizing your setup driven towards the Grand Prix itself, and pulling back a bit on the qualifying pace as well. And I know at some points in qualifying, you could hear him over the radio. He was a bit irked about it because he was only a few tenths off of like the McLarens, but the team really prioritizing the race for Sunday over the qualifying on the Saturday could play a pretty big role for them. Like, I'm really curious to see where they end up at the end of the Grand Prix on Sunday, because that's going to carry over into other races. If they see that they've had success with going in that direction, really prioritizing a good race car, not just such a great qualifying car, which they've had this year, then I would say watch out for that for the rest of the season. If they're able to score some good points or get on the podium, I could see Mercedes playing around with that for the rest of the year. And I think if it does work for them, I think Mercedes is probably going to be in line for some really good finishes this season in some Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton, P5. He's always been really good at this track. He felt this was a big improvement for him with his qualifying on Saturday. So I think he feels he's made a bit of a jump with the car. He was happy with the processes and setup wise, like the build up, I should call it, for himself and the team working together during the weekend. That was a big thing for him, and you could see that bleed over onto the track itself with some really positive qualifying laps, especially the one at the end there. That was actually a really good lap that he put together there. Lewis feels that he's going to be trying to get a podium tomorrow for Sunday, so he thinks he can get a podium in this race. So let's see what happens for Lewis and Russell and Verstappen. That's going to be a really interesting battle there for that final podium paying position. Kimi Antonelli is P6. Really good bounce back weekend for Antonelli because he's obviously had some struggles with Imola. Just getting overloaded with too many friends, family. He had his whole class there from school one day, and just kind of not overwhelmed, but drained the batteries and took away from the focus that should have been on the track and everything. So he's really had to kind of reprioritize, I should say, how he approaches a weekend because of what happened in Imola, and then same with Monaco, kind of bled over into Monaco because it's just a track. You just need experience on it. Rookies aren't going to be great at Monaco, but I guess I should say Isaac Hajar is pretty impressive. So I should probably watch what I say with all that. Antonelli really struggled to get into a rhythm, he said, at the start of the session, and that meant he had to use up more tires than what he really wanted to. So he only had one new set of tires for Q3, which wasn't great, because the difference from new tires to used tires, that gap was actually really big. And you could see that he wasn't the only one who kind of ran into that issue. Charles Leclerc, P7, the run plan, however, for him was different than what Antonelli was facing. Leclerc just didn't have any tires left anymore, because they were prioritizing 4 new sets for qualifying, and that was it. And they wasted too many sets in Q1. So he only had 3 new sets for Q1, Q2, Q3, against others that had 5 new softs. So for tomorrow, he's hoping that Ferrari's gamble on tire choices is going to pay off in the race, because they'll have more new tires than a lot of the other drivers on the grid, because of everyone just burning through new softs to just try and punch their way out of Q1 and punch their way out of Q2. Pierre Gasly, P8. Isaac Hajar, P9. Really good stuff from Hajar again. Fernando Alonso, P10. He was pretty happy over the radio. If you go back and you listen to it, listen to his onboard camera, because that was a hell of a lap he put in. Only running the soft once. Really impressive stuff from Alonso. Was remarkable. He's trying to get his first points of the season on Sunday, and I think for Fernando, you hear some, or you read some things on the internet, people saying that he's old and washed up or whatever. Whoever says that stuff has really lost it, because the age is not catching up with him. He looks still incredible in qualifying. He looked incredible in qualifying in Monaco. And that lap he did in Q3 on Saturday in Spain was really remarkable. Just so impressive from him. Q2, the projected knockout time in Q2 was 1:12.7. So it was really tight to kind of get through. You saw drivers who weren't getting through by the slimmest of margins. It was incredibly tight out there. But out at the end was Alex Albon, P11, Gabriel Bortoleto was P12, Liam Lawson was P13, Lance Stroll was P14, Oliver Behrman P15. For Alex Albon, he had a slow-moving Oliver Behrman in front of him heading through turn 12. So Ollie was on his prep lap and Alex was on his push lap. So definitely got the dirty air from that. But Behrman did his best to get out of the way for him. Albon did think that it wasn't the maximum that was in the car this weekend. It sounds like having reserve driver Victor Martins in the car for FP1 was a bit of an issue, and put him on the back foot and helping him prepare the car for himself for the entire weekend, because Victor was in his car for FP1, so that sort of put him on the back foot. And I think he felt that he didn't get he got too much dirty air when he was out on his push lap, and felt that he may have been able to get through to Q3. He thought the pace was in the car to accomplish that. Lance said at the end of this one, he'd been struggling with the car all weekend, so trying to get a good balance, and struggling to put the laps together because of not having a consistent balance across the corner range. He was really having trouble getting good entry stability with the car into the corner, so on the brakes heading in, and then getting understeer on brake bleed off. So initially getting on the brakes, and then you're going through that bleed off process. He's been trying some different things to drive around it, but just couldn't find it. Behrman P15, that was the max he could get from the car. He was on used softs. That was always going to be tough in Q2 to try and get through. He used up so many in Q1 just trying to punch his way out of it, that in Q2 just didn't really have anything left. So that's how it ended for him. That was always going to be tough. Q1, so the projected knockout time for that was 112.9. So you compare that to what Q1's was, so just 0.2. So again, really the margins just super close this season. Is it really? It's all you can say about it. Hulkenberg P16, Ocon P17, Sainz P18, Colapinto P19, Tsunoda P20. Esteban, the Haas had been struggling all weekend here. I mean, I know you wouldn't be able to tell it because of what Oliver Behrman did, but obviously Behrman didn't qualify that far ahead of Esteban. Esteban P17 and Behrman P15. But the cars themselves have been struggling at this track. I'm actually surprised Behrman got through to Q2. He was on the radio saying that the last corner was pretty scary. And when you're running low on grip in the tire and you're coming through the very last corner, it is very, very daunting. Trust me, it is extremely daunting. So, yeah, I could see why he would say that's pretty scary over the radio. Ocon, he feels pretty optimistic for the race on Sunday, which I was surprised to hear. So what I heard from him following this one on Saturday here at the qualifying, like he didn't seem too down about the race for tomorrow. So I'm really quite interested to see what happens with the Haas's in race mode, because I mean, yes, you can pass here. It's not hard to pass here, which is good, but then I guess it depends what type of a strategy you're thinking about running. They're going to have to do something really wild, I think. Carlos Sainz, this was a track that Williams struggled at last year. This race obviously is home Grand Prix as well, and he felt that he had the pace to get to Q3 or to get in to Q3 if he put the lap together. But sounds like his final push lap was ruined by Colapinto's stalled car in pit lane, and that put him out of place for his push lap because he had about 5 cars in front of him, and he was basically battling dirty air for his final push lap. So that was always going to be a challenge to get through to Q2 when you're having to deal with so much turbulent air or wake coming off of a lot of the slower moving cars that are in front that he kind of had to get around at certain points in his push lap. So he said they're going to roll the dice on strategy for the race on Sunday and try for points. I mean, I'll take my hat off to him if he gets points tomorrow, because starting all the way back there is going to be really challenging. Franco Colapinto, he'd reported a problem with his car in pit lane, trying to pull away, and he held up, a whole line of cars that were queuing behind him. So the car just quit while he was just getting out onto track. So he wasn't sure what happened to the car. He thought that something broke on it, but he felt that he could have gotten through to Q2. So, I mean, it's like I had said when we did our race preview for Imola, and we were talking about qualifying, and I said to Adam that, look, the next few races were going to be very challenging for him. So Imola, Monaco, but I said once he gets to the Spanish Grand Prix on a track that all the drivers know, then I had felt that he was probably going to be okay, because he could push the car a little bit more. He would understand the track a lot more than he would the other two, and he would be able to, I guess, lean on it and sort of take it to its limit. It was going to be a good weekend for him, and it literally was turning into a good weekend for him. But the team got a message from them. They said that they examined Franco's car following qualifying, and they identified that he was suffering from a driveline issue. and the team will have more details for us before the start of tomorrow's Spanish Grand Prix. Yuki Tsunoda, I mean, yeah, it's been tough. Definitely been tough for Tsunoda, even though he was on personal bests in qualifying in Q1. It still wasn't even close enough to getting through to Q2. He was almost 0.3 back of the knockout time. And sounds like he was having like a lot of grip issues with the car. He tried many different things throughout the weekend, but nothing worked. He said nothing that he put on the car really worked for him. He felt that the lap that he had done was okay, and there wasn't any real mistakes within the lap. And then for the race, he just didn't sound optimistic for that either. I mean, he feels that the car is eating the tires too much, and they're just overheating or getting way too hot. And he didn't really touch on if he had a damaged floor or not. So hard to say whether or not he had any damage with the race car itself. But yeah, there's a couple notes I made. First one is on Christian Horner. He was asked by Lewis Larkham in the press conference if Ferrari had been in contact with him, contacting him to come and join Ferrari. And he said, quote, "Of course, it's always flattering to be associated with other teams, but my commitment 100% is with Red Bull. My Italian is worse than Flavio's English. So how on earth would that work?" That's what he said. So yeah, apparently Horner was contacted by Ferrari. Find that interesting. Maybe it's something Adam and I can dive into a little bit more in the post-race podcast. Got some questions. Let's go over to Blue Sky. So I actually got quite a few on there. Let's see. I got one from Ronaldo Geraldo. It's not bad. How much notice did the teams have to work around technical directives? It feels like we knew about the Flexi-wing rule change for a little bit now, but the steel skid blocks versus titanium sounds like that's a new thing. That's a good question. Teams aren't, they're not, basically when the FIA has to really consult with the team's drivers now as well about certain things. For the Flexi-wing technical directive, since when it was sort of discovered what was going on with the McLaren, and then you saw other teams starting to follow suit, and then the FIA getting so many, complaints from other teams about it, that in the wintertime they were just like, okay, enough. Look, we are going to make this a very hard rule or technical directive, and we're going to develop a system. And if you guys are going over that system, then that's it. That's all there is to it. And so that was a massive amount of lead-in time, because essentially it's a big change, right? But essentially you're changing your front wing and rear wing, especially for this one, changing that front wing specifically for this one. And the front wing is sort of like the first part of the car that obviously pierces the air. And so it sort of is the leader and where the air kind of gets directed to straight off the hop. And so for a lot of these teams, they've had enough time to figure it out and work on it that I don't necessarily think that McLaren is going to have a huge advantage because of it, or they're going to have a huge disadvantage because of it. I think you're going to see that over the next few races, we may notice some things, but it's not going to be like this huge thing that we've sort of been hearing about. That's why I was always saying, let's wait and see, because it's going to take some time before we know what this new technical directive has done to the race cars. And again, still in Spain, still trying to see what it actually has done. McLaren's advantage for qualifying and the practice sessions and all that is the fact that they're able to just manage the tire. This is a very energy-driven circuit, so there's so much energy and temperatures being driven through the tires that McLaren's just really good at keeping that under control. And that's what makes them just so competitive this year. It's basically that. And teams are trying to figure it out so they can come with their own ideas and try and make it better than what McLaren has. So this isn't like over by any stretch of the imagination. But for the skid blocks that you had mentioned, the steel skid blocks that some cars had to run this weekend versus the titanium ones, that was something that was just introduced. However, I think a lot of the teams would have been given more than enough heads up time to make sure that they were ready for this. Jack Demare asks, how soon until Isaac Hadjar is in the Red Bull? I think it's going to be a while. I just don't think it's you already had two drivers in there, right? You had Liam Lawson and you got Yuki Tsunoda. You're going to put a third one in there, and you're going to use one of your rookies to do it. And what happens if Isaac struggles worse than what Lawson and Tsunoda struggled? I mean, it's not a good thing for a young rookie driver to jump into. It isn't. You're really going to set them back. So I would say, if it was me making the decisions, just leave Tsunoda in for the rest of the season. You are where you are with him right now. He's trying to figure it out still. And what makes people think that Hadjar is going to be able to figure it out any faster? That's my only thing. It's a hard car to drive. Really, only Max can really drive it. And that's just the way it is right now. And so I think you got to leave Tsunoda with it. I think you keep getting Hadjar ready for the big seat, whether that be for next season or the year after. I would err on the side of caution and put him in 2027. I think he would be more prepared for that, because you want to make sure that you really build this driver up, because he's really good. He's really, really good. So give him time, and then give him the experience. Don't crash his confidence immediately and set yourself back. Derek asks, how come Charles Leclerc didn't come out at the end of Q3 for one more lap? But yeah, it's like I was mentioning in Leclerc's section here on the pod, Derek, is the fact that they just, the way that they have prioritized the race over the qualifying, and we've seen that with a couple other teams that tried to do that as well, and then also with setup as well for some other cars, like I had mentioned with George Russell. So Ferrari really trying to roll the dice on this idea of making sure that the tires that they're going to run in the race, all of them are going to be fresh. So whether that be medium, soft, so at least we know they're going to be running a soft tire at some point on Sunday. I think that's gonna have to happen, and Leclerc will get a fresh soft tire. Now, what type of advantage is he going to get from that? Right? I mean, it could be quite significant. It could, and so I don't want to beat on Ferrari's strategy just yet, because it could be something that's actually pays off really well for them later on in the race. Could be a really genius move, and something that we'll dive into if it does lead to that. And I think also for Ferrari is definitely something to look at moving forward. Thanks very much, everyone, for your questions. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Adam and I are going to be back either Sunday night or Monday morning with a new episode of Nailing the Apex.